So with that, we'd like to entertain any questions that you may have. Yes, sir.
Was any consideration given to reducing the cost of interscholastic sports by making them pay to play?
Do you want to answer?
We did consider that. We looked into that, and actually that is something that is not legal in New York State. There are other states where it is legal. Pay for play is where you actually would charge student athletes a certain amount to participate, and the state education department has said that is not legal to do.
Here's how that has no academic relevance. It's time to start looking at how much money we spend on sports that could be supported by things like boosters rather than taxpayers. It's not academic relevance.
And we agree with you, and in my presentation there are some teams that were eliminated. There are other teams that are going to have to do fundraising, the booster clubs and so on, swimming, gymnastics, in order to have a program next year. And this is just some cuts that we made this year. Over the past several years, there have been further cuts. Other teams have been eliminated. And I think you're going to see our sports program, unfortunately, continue to shrink as far as the offerings. Given the financial state that we expect for the next couple of years, continued decrease in state aid, I agree, we just can't continue to support everything that we've had before.
Still taking $2 million away from instructional needs and putting it into violence like football.
Well, there are a number of folks that also believe that a well-rounded educational program includes sports, so we're trying to reach a good balance. So?
Can you tell me what the price tag is for interscholastic sports, including transportation, practice time, field maintenance, everything, not just that little line in the budget that doesn't include those extraneous items?
I'm going to let Mr. Alaimo address the dollar questions.
Fully loaded, I'm not prepared to answer that at this point because I haven't factored in the maintenance. I know we have a grounds crew of about 8 individuals, so I could rough estimate what that cost is. I could certainly get back to you with that number. The $1.8 million.
Now, I mean,
sure. I would say probably about $2.5 million.
Total for all interscholastic sports cuts?
That's the cost of interscholastic. I'm saying, did you say cuts or cost?
Cost. How much are all interscholastic?
That's what I would estimate, approximately.
Coaching fees and everything.
All coaching fees in our line item budget is $1.8 million, is all interscholastics budget. If I was to factor in transportation and the maintenance of our fields and things like that, again, factoring the staff, I'm just using round numbers at this point.
Medical.
That's all included in our interscholastics budget. All those contracted services, if I were to show you,
Talking around $2 million, you said?
I would say north of $2 million, probably between $2 and $2.5 million of the 197.6. Again, I'm rough estimating, but that's what I would think is a reasonable range of our cost of our interscholastic program.
How many teachers did you hire for that $2.5 million?
Well, all that were reduced.
Pardon?
We could probably restore all the positions that were reduced with it.
My point.
How many kids are benefiting from interscholastic sports? And I don't know how many children there are in the school district.
We do have that number. I had it at one point. I could get that number for you. I don't remember it off the top of my head. But we had a breakdown of our athletic directors provided that to us at the budget onset as participation by program. So we do have that, and I could certainly get that to you.
How many students are in the school district?
About 12,500. About 12,500, give or take. Yeah, and the number of kids involved in sports is in the thousands. Yes, sir.
Somebody asked me this question the other day, so I thought I'd pass it on to you, John. You folks might have an answer. If the school district in the town of Greece used a minimum amount of busing, just a very bare bones state minimum, just all the court-ordered busing that they have to mandate, how much of a savings in the current economic climate with the price of gas and so on, is anybody in the school district projecting possible savings or hypothetical savings?
And that's what we're working on right now. That's why we're not presenting a bus proposition right now, because we can't adequately answer that question right now. We would need to go through an analysis and essentially reroute all the students within a neighborhood concept, apply all the mandates, and that's what we're working on right now. We're working on some simulations to do that. So if we are going to ask the community for buses again, which is going to be inevitable, we're going to ask the community to weigh in on a bus proposition at some point in time. We're going to have to answer that question.
The work in progress.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Lou did mention, one of the hot topics is the schools of choice. That whole transportation piece of it. There is a study session on May 24th where the board will be addressing and dealing with that issue again. Superintendent O'Rourke presented a whole set of recommendations about school choice, and on May 24th, which is a week from Tuesday, the board will be discussing that. So there's an opportunity if you want to come and listen to what their discussion is.
I think, ma'am, here.
You said that 52 full-time positions are going to be eliminated. How many of those are by choice and how many are actually being cut?
30 through attrition.
Retiring.
Okay, about 30 positions are being eliminated through retirement and other attrition.
Okay, so 30 are retiring.
Or vacancies that are not being filled. The teachers, I think we had 22 retirements at the teaching ranks, 9 positions at the non-general support, the non-instructional positions were all either through vacancy or retirement. I don't have the exact breakdown, but they were all through attrition.
The question that comes up on the news frequently is bullying, and I didn't see you mention that anywhere in your presentation. And I realize that drugs and alcohol are a major issue in our community, and there are many young people that are involved in illicit activities. Well, what about bullying? Well, what's going on with it? How is the school district helping children with that issue? I have a very soft spot in my heart for that, because I know of a young man in the preschool district who decided he wasn't going to school anymore just because of that, and has since dropped out.
I'm going to ask Dr. Heff to respond to that question. She's our assistant superintendent for student services and special education, and there's actually quite a few programs that have been put in place and that are being considered.
There's a couple things, there are a few things actually that are going on. I have a loud voice, so I didn't think I'd need this, but there's a few things that are going on at Greece Central to specifically address that. One of the things that we've been implementing for the last 3 years is a program called Positive Behavioral Intervention Supports. And currently, we've implemented that at the high schools and the middle schools, and 4 elementary schools as of the end of next year will also have implemented that. And it's really teaching children how to be nice to other children and having adults go through an extensive training before it's even introduced in the school. It's been a very positive program and initiative. The referrals have gone down, the suspensions have gone down somewhat in those specific schools. Also, with the counseling department, they have a curriculum that is really addressing specifically the harassment, the bullying, the cyberbullying. Another great thing, too, that we're doing right now in my department is, as you all know, every district has a code of conduct. And every few years, that code of conduct needs to be looked at and examined because of the reason state and federal laws changed. So on May 24th, we're going to have a study session looking at our code of conduct, and I've worked extensively with attorneys, with lots of stakeholder groups, including students, and all the K-12 principals and others, to look at all the specific divisions of that code of conduct, and a lot of that in there is being addressed is the bullying, the cyberbullying, and the harassment. So we're really, the whole school district, I can honestly say, is really embracing and doing things to help with this situation with bullying. And it's not only Greece Central, it's, you know, all of New York, and really the nation is struggling with that. There's not a day that you don't pick the paper up and you see something like that. Okay, I hope that answered your question.
Curious, the question I had on a slide at the beginning
Yeah, I'm sorry.
was about the graduation rate. So is that based on, usually when you hear it in the news, it's based on how many kids enter the 7th or 8th grade and graduate? Is that what that number was based on?
Yes.
And is it getting worse? I mean, are we seeing a reduction in the graduation rate over time? Or is it
We have been experiencing a very slight increase.
Oh, since what time? When you say slightly compared to last year, or over?
I would say over the last few years, it's a little bit better each year.
Thank you.
There were a bunch of hands. Okay. Yeah.
I have a few questions, actually. Quickly, how many teachers does the district employ at this point, and how many will there be next year?
Ballpark around 1,100 this year, and there'll be about 50 fewer next year.
It seems to me like we've had 1,100 for many years. It just doesn't seem to change. Don't you add teachers during the course of the year as people move into the district and stuff? So that, well, because when you get to a certain class size, you have to add the teacher at a certain,
We've been relatively flat for the past few years.
but enrollment's been going down.
But there is, as we showed you, there are some additional mandated programs that we have to hire more teachers for. For example, the academic intervention services. We're going to have more teachers providing that service because of the change in the cut scores that the state ed department implemented this past year retroactively.
Bigger issue, if the budget goes down, since it already does not include the transportation and the capital improvement stuff, besides the equipment that got cut this past year, what else in this budget would have to be removed to go to contingency next year?
The mandated part of that is the equipment. The Board of Education has the option of adopting a contingent budget or going back and revisiting the budget and making other cuts that they want to make beyond equipment.
So the Board of Education is basically asking us to vote on a contingent budget with the exception of the equipment. Is that correct?
I would say that's a fair statement, yes. That's the only, it used to be that sports and there were a number of other, transportation, a number of other services would be pulled out of the budget if it was voted down and wasn't approved. Those things were changed at least eight or 9 years ago, so that now it's just the capital improvements and the equipment.
Just, if I may, just one addition to that. Those are the technical exclusions under an austerity budget. However, the Board of Education, similar to what they did last year, they would have to take all the technical requirements, but the Board of Education determines what's in a contingent budget and what's not in a contingent budget. The law is very general. So if just for instance, just to say hypothetical, if the overwhelming turnout said 0% increase in taxes, and the board could act on that and say, we want to make $1.9 million more of reductions, and then adopt an austerity budget. So it's not a given that the plan would just be $500,000, that's what the board accepts. The board has the option of determining what is contingent and what is not contingent. The law, and when I have to say it without the benefit of discussion, I would just have to exclude those equipment items. But again, the board has authority over all line items in the budget.
When you mentioned the rate, the tax rate, what is the amount per thousand this year compared to next year? It's going to be $22.78. What is it currently?
$22.54.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
How long do you keep the buses before they have to be replaced?
Our smaller buses, 5 to 8 years is generally that range, and the larger buses, we look at from 8 to 11, 12 years.
How many miles?
They're all, any bus that we would have, of our buses, I forget what percentage, they put on about 15,000 miles per year, so you can extrapolate that over the 10 years. The mileage on our buses are well over 100,000 miles.